Hi everyone, welcome to the Career Center interviewing session. Okay, we're gonna get started in maybe just 30 more seconds here just to let everybody in. Isha, do you want to start introducing or would you like me to?
Whatever you want to do, Tiffany.
Okay, we can go ahead and get started here. Okay, so Mr. Haynes is going to be our speaker today for this session. He's from the Baylor Career Center. I personally have been in the Career Center multiple times last year, and I think it's a great resource. So without further ado, Mr. Haynes, you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, thanks, Tiffany, and thanks to everyone for being here with me today. Plan to talk about interviewing, a little bit about me. Again, my name's Nick, and I work in the Career Center. I'm a career coach, and so for those of you who haven't visited one of the coaches in the Career Center, we will do anything related to helping you with your career. So resume writing, cover letter writing, interviewing, practicing interviews, practicing looking for jobs, internships, preparing for grad school, trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. Really anything related to helping you get to where you want to go next will help with that. Today, though, we're going to talk about interviewing, and there's going to be maybe some opportunities for questions, interactions throughout. So love for you guys to be ready to unmute and jump in there and ask questions. If you prefer to ask questions via chat or respond via chat, feel free to do that too, but I absolutely do not mind and actually prefer if you guys will unmute every now and then and talk to me. That would be great. And right here off the bat, what do you guys think about interviewing? You think, okay, I'm applying for a job, I'm applying for an internship, applying for grad school, and now I got an interview. It's good news. But how do you feel about that? Like, what comes to mind?
I think a lot of us are pre-health, so it's a little bit intimidating, especially for pre-med committees and everything, or overall just talking to a professor. We might see it as an interview.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's scary. It feels intimidating. I mean, the good news is you just got an interview. That's a big step. But you can definitely it makes you feel a little nervous for sure. And one of the interesting things about interviewing is really no matter what you're interviewing for, whether you're interviewing for med school or with the pre-health committee, for an internship, for a scribe position, whatever it happens to be, there's a lot of commonalities in the questions that would be asked and the ways that the interviews are conducted. And the feelings are the same. You're gonna feel nervous on the front end. But my goal here today is to help you guys understand that through adequate preparation, you can feel very confident going into an interview, and not only feel confident, but potentially, I think one of the biggest things, one of the worries that a lot of people have is, so what are they going to ask me about, and what am I going to say? And it is 100% possible for you to predict just about every single question that's going to be asked during any given interview. So that you go in and you can even prepare your answers in advance because you know what you're going to be asked. You have your answers ready to go. And so when you jump into the interview and you're asked a question that you knew was going to be asked and you give a great answer because you've prepared it and you've practiced it, that's ultimately what you want to happen. You don't want to go into an interview cold. You don't want to go into an interview not knowing what to expect. Because you will be asked questions that will throw you off, and then you will ramble through your answers and you won't know what to say, what to focus on. You'll give detail that's not important. You'll kick yourself after the interview because you'll wish you had said something different. And that might happen a little bit anyway, but it is definitely possible to predict those questions and to prepare adequately. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for just getting rid of the nerves along the way. Anyway, here on the front end, I know we're all in different places, and maybe some of you have an interview coming up soon. And maybe Others of you are not anticipating one for the next year or two, but any questions right here on the front end, anything that you definitely want to make sure that I address today?
Maybe like some of the most common interview questions that you'd expect to have.
Great. Yep. We'll definitely look at that, show you some of the very most common and show you, talk about ways you can research those too. Yeah. Anything else?
I guess I was just wondering like how to prepare without like coming off sounding like overly rehearsed or anything.
Yeah. That's a good question. And we'll talk about that. We'll hit on that too.
Things not to do.
Yes. Things not to do. That's important. Yep. We'll talk about that. Okay, that's a good start. Okay, we'll jump in there. And if you have a question as we go, feel free to just interject. Again, chat or unmute and speak. Either way, I'm comfortable with either way. I want to make sure your questions are answered as we move through. Also, just a heads up, there's going to be 2 different opportunities for us. I'm going to break you out into breakout rooms 2 different times so that you can actually practice with each other some of the things that we're doing. So practice while it's fresh. So that'll give you guys a chance to be a little more interactive. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen with you. And let's see, actually, let me do it like this. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to run through this presentation with you. So again, we're talking about interviewing, and here are the areas that we're going to focus on. So 4 major areas: appearance, preparation, ability to market your qualifications, and then general advice towards the end. It's probably spend most of the time right here in the middle between preparation and ability to market your qualifications. But right on the front end, I think it's important to talk about your appearance. So whether you're going in person or going via video, it's important to think about this. First impressions are important, or even by the phone. You may have heard some statistics about how long it takes someone to. We all make preconceived judgments about others, and for better or for worse, there's an opinion that's formed in our mind when we meet someone or we see someone or we hear someone for the first time. And so it's very important to make a really strong first impression, really positive one. And so cologne, you don't want people to still smell you after you leave the interview room. So that's important to consider. So just wanted to hit on those things briefly. The main thing that I can't emphasize enough is that you need to practice over and over again for your interview. So you want to practice before you even know you have an interview. If you apply for a job and you think, you know what, I have a good chance of getting an interview, well, go ahead and practice for it in advance. And then when you get the interview, you want to practice some more. And one of the best ways to start practicing, this is how you can start to predict the questions that are going to be asked, is you want to know the job description. So again, if it's a research opportunity, if it's an internship, if it's grad school, whatever it is, you want to know exactly what it is you're going for, know exactly what they're looking for, what the key qualifications are, the key skills they're seeking. And then that's where you take your clues in terms of what they're going to ask. So for example, in the job description, they might say something along the lines of, we want somebody with excellent communication skills. Well, if they say that, you can bet they're going to ask you several questions about your communication abilities. So things like, tell me about a time when you communicated effectively. Tell me about a time when you experienced a breakdown in communication. Do you prefer to communicate in writing or verbally? Things like that. So really all things communication, and you want to prepare some responses. And I'll talk to you in a minute about how to prepare those responses and what to say. But take your clues from the job description. You can make out a full list of potential interview questions just from the job description alone that will probably get you what you need. So take out your highlighter, take out your pen, underline, highlight, make sure you know exactly what they're looking for. Then you can also go online and just do a Google search. And so if you're applying for a research position, then you could Google commonly asked questions for a research fellowship or something like that. And you're going to get a lot of really good responses, a lot of really good information out there. There's a lot of websites, and they're all going to throw out different things. But as you read through them, you're going to start to notice there's a lot of commonalities there. There's a lot of the same questions are appearing, and if not the exact same question, maybe something that's just asked a little bit differently in a slightly different way, but you're going to start to notice those themes and commonalities. So that can give you some good clues as to what you're going to be asked for any given situation. So again, practice with a roommate, with a parent, with one of us in the career center, with a friend. Do it multiple times, have multiple people interview you and give you feedback, because you want to get multiple perspectives on how you're presenting yourself, on how you're responding, and have them throw curveballs at you and throw different questions at you, so that you can think on your feet. So there's special preparation that is required if you're doing an interview over the phone or over video. If you're doing those, a lot of interviews these days are done by video because of COVID. So you definitely want to practice for that. Like if you're doing phone or video, you don't want to have any distracting background noises. Video, you want to have a nice professional looking background. And also something that's interesting to think about is when you're talking to somebody via camera, you want to give the illusion of personal interaction and eye contact. So, if I have my like camera down here and I'm looking at my chest, or like looking way up at the ceiling or something like that, that's just going to look weird. But try to make eye contact with the camera wherever possible, so that you can give the impression that you're making eye contact. You want the camera to be pretty much level with your eye, about right here, chest up, head kind of in the center, that kind of thing. So practice that. And also you want to avoid those technology glitches and those kinds of things that are inevitable, as we just figured out with any kind of video conference. Happens all the time with interviews, but don't let it be something that happens on your end. And then you definitely want to prepare in advance by making a list of the questions that you want to ask. So the very last question that you're going to be asked in any interview is more than likely going to be, do you have any questions for us? And there's only one right answer to that question, and the answer is yes, I do. And then you ask your questions. And so you want to not ask things that are just obvious, things that you can find on the website, that kind of stuff, but you want to ask maybe some more subjective questions from the person that you're interviewing with. So tell me about what is your experience like with the company? I'd love to hear a little bit more. Did you start in this entry-level position and then work your way up? Tell me about what a typical day in this position is going to look like. What am I going to be doing from hour to hour and throughout the day and throughout the week? I'd love to know a little bit more from your perspective. So asking them to share from their experience, their perspective, can both be honoring and it can be helpful to you. And those are just good questions to ask. So some of the other more commonly asked interview questions. So who can tell me what the first most commonly asked interview question is? It's going to be the first question they ask you. It's going to come in 99% of interviews you're going to have. Who knows what that is?
Can you tell us a little about yourself?
That's exactly it. Tell me about yourself. And so whether it's tell me about yourself, whether it's walk me through your resume, why are you applying for this job? All of those questions are essentially asking the same thing. Why are you here? Tell me about your professional skills and qualifications. This isn't tell me your personal details, like tell me about your mom and your sister and your girlfriend and your dog and your hobbies and those kinds of things. It's okay to talk about the personal stuff. You can incorporate it throughout the interview and make small talk if you'd like to, if you're comfortable. Because at the end of the day, keep in mind, these people that you're talking to are just people, and they want to know that they can relate to you on some level and interact with you. So you can hit on the personal, but tell me about yourself as your opportunity to tell me why you're qualified and why you're here for this position. So you want to walk through your history as it relates to this position. So you might talk about, like if you're applying for a research position, you might talk about how you first became interested in research and some of the research experiences you've had at Baylor, some of the classes you've taken, some of the skills that you've developed, and then how you learned about this particular opportunity, why you're interested in it, how you see it informing and helping your career, and ultimately what you hope to gain from this. And so you end a good way to end that question is by essentially telling me why are you here in this chair talking to me right now. Why do you want this? And so that's a good tell me about yourself. Generally 60 seconds to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes for tell me about yourself. You don't want to be too concise there, and you don't want to just ramble on and on and on. One of the other big questions, if it doesn't come out through tell me about yourself, why do you want to be a doctor? Why do you want to be a physical therapist? Why do you want to be, so whatever it is you're applying for, be ready to answer very clearly why you want to do that. Why do you want to do that with this organization, with this particular population, and have a very clear and compelling why for that. Another big one, 2 of your strengths. I always tell people be prepared with 3 strengths and make sure that they're strengths that are relevant to the role that you're applying for. If you're really great at doing public speaking and you're going to be in a lab not talking with anybody, you don't really need to talk about public speaking. They don't really care about that because that's not a skill that's important for the job. But talk about the skills that are going to be really important for that particular job. And then don't just share it. Don't just share the skill, but give an example. So if you said, hey, Nick, what's one of your strengths? And I could say, I'm a really effective communicator. Is that believable? I mean, not really. So you want to back it up with an example. So yeah, in fact, communication is one of my strengths. So let me tell you an example about a time when I demonstrated some strong communication skills. And then I share the story. I give the example to back it up. But 2 to 3 strengths and 2 to 3 weaknesses. And same thing here. You don't want to talk about weaknesses or that are necessarily critical functions of the job. If you want to go be a teacher, you don't want to say, I'm just really bad at working with kids. That's not a good weakness to disclose at that moment in time. At the same time, I want to challenge you and encourage you to be authentic, to be real. And they're not trying to catch you off guard here. What they're trying to do is when they ask you any kind of question that maybe has more of a negative tone, they're trying to see if you truly are self-aware and have you ever made a mistake and become aware of your weaknesses and then learned and grown from it. So I might say something along the lines of, you know what, sometimes, when I'm serving customers, I experience a breakdown in communication because of this. And in fact, there was a time when this happened. And so I share that story. And then I go on to say, but you know what? I learned from that experience that when a customer is sharing a concern with me, I need to give them clear, and I need to actively listen to what they're saying so that I won't miss out on what they're saying in the long run, and I can address their concerns in an adequate manner. And that's what I learned from that situation, from that mistake that I made. So anytime you talk about something negative, end on a positive. Tell me what you learned from it. Tell me how you've grown. Tell me how you're addressing that weakness so that it's not an issue in your work. Tell me about a time when. So this is the big one, and this is what we're going to focus on a little bit more today. But tell me about a time when you demonstrated strong communication skills, when you showed initiative, when you made a mistake, when you had to work as part of a team. Again, you taking your clues from the job description to predict what kind of tell me about a time when questions are going to be asked, but be prepared to give specific examples with specific stories from your past experiences, because your past experiences and behaviors are predictive of your future behaviors. And that's what they're trying to get at by asking you those types of questions. And then lastly, we already talked about this, but do you have any questions for me? So right now, this is where I want to break out and give you guys an opportunity to tell me about yourself. So I'm going to try to break you into rooms of two, maybe three, and just go around. I'm going to give you guys about 4 minutes here. Try to keep your answer to 60 seconds if at all possible, but one person speak up and say, okay, well, hey, Tiffany, tell me about yourself. And then Tiffany will respond with her answer, and then you'll switch places, okay? So let's give this a try. There's no wrong answers here. This is just an opportunity to practice. And oh, Tiffany, it looks like at some point I lost the ability to do breakout rooms.
Okay, I can go ahead and create it. So let's
Okay.
see how many people are on the call. Okay, so there will be about 2 in each breakout room, and one will have 3.
Perfect. Maybe if you can leave me out too.
Okay.
And then
I think that
if
would
there
be
is somebody
great.
by themselves, then maybe get them with somebody else.
Am I supposed to be in the breakout room? I can't access anything.
Oh, you can't? Okay, let me see. It's 4 minutes. Okay, let me try to resend it. I don't know how to. Okay, move to room 5. Okay, Andrew, why don't you try again?
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, of course. Okay, I'm gonna jump into one of the breakout rooms and see what's going on, but thank you so much. It's going great so far.
Yeah, did you set a time limit on it by any chance?
Yes, I believe so.
If it's, and I think it usually defaults to giving you 60 seconds at the end, but if you could cut it off at like at 3 minutes so that it'll end at 4 minutes, that'd be great.
Yes, I'm going to send a message to everyone.
Cool. Appreciate that.
Okay, you know what? I think I might stay in this room just to make sure everybody comes back, and I can message anyone who doesn't. Okay, so they should be joining back here in around 1 minute.
Okay. I'm going to step away for just a second. Be right back.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Tiffany, can you play some piano? Intermission.
A 10-second intermission. Okay, we'll give everyone maybe 20 more seconds here. Looks like people are still in their breakout rooms. Okay, Mr. Haynes, you can go ahead and get started.
Hey, well, how did that go, guys? How was that experience? See a thumb up, see some heads nodding. I bet it was kind of hard too for some folks. Right there on the spot. I think we got somebody and something in the chat. Let's see. It was fun, cool. I'm glad it was fun. You know, it can be a little scary too, and there's always that feeling, even though we just talked about it, of gosh, what do I say? I'm not sure what to say. And what you say should honestly change depending on the job you're applying for. Again, based on that job description that you're looking at, and then it could also yeah, just depend on the situation and who you're talking to. But it's so important to prepare that in advance and have a clear idea. And somebody had asked earlier about how do I just not come across as scripted and overly prepared. And so there's just something that happens, like when you prepare something, even if you just write out a paragraph of tell me about yourself, know it backwards and forwards to the point where when you say it, it's not something that is coming across as scripted, but it's more conversational. You know it so well, you can just have a conversation about it. And then it feels a little more natural then. So when you prepare to the point where you can just have a natural conversation about it, you don't even have to look at your notes. That's when you know you're ready. And you're definitely not going to come across as scripted in that particular instance. So the other question I want us to focus on, again, is those open-ended, tell me about a time when questions. And this is where you're really going to market your qualifications. This is where you're going to convey that you have the skills, the experience, the knowledge to do this particular job. Now, a good interviewer is going to ask you these open-ended questions. They're going to solicit these stories from you because they want to hear about your past experiences. There's some bad interviewers out there, though, that are just going to ask you some of the close-ended questions. And so some of those might come across as, so have you ever been faced with a challenge? And then you might say, yeah, I've had some difficult challenges in the past. And because of the way the question is worded, you don't think to give that specific example. But if they were to ask you, so tell me about a time when you had to face a challenge, well, then you start to think, okay, I need to share that story. So let me tell you this: if you are asked to close it into question, you still want to respond with a story. The specific example is always going to be more effective than just talking in generalities about whatever it is. So if it's leadership, if you say, yeah, I'm a part of Burst and I'm in a leadership position in Burst, and so I've just developed leadership skills over that time, that's still not very specific. I mean, you're telling me you're in a leadership position, but it's still not conveying those relevant skills. Rather, you want to dive into that specific situation. Well, yeah, in fact, I'm a leader with Burst, and as part of my responsibility in this role, I had to develop this research day, a series of presentations. And by doing that, I had to communicate with speakers, and I had to organize times, and I had to organize events. And so you're giving the details of that particular experience to help clearly convey that you have some leadership skills and leadership experience. So you want to get specific here. So here's how you want to respond to these questions. So how do I answer these questions? That's the tough part. STAR method is something I want you guys to remember. I'm going to share a document with you in a little bit so you can have access to this later on. But STAR is just an acronym that stands for situation, task, action, and result. So situation, you talk about what was going on in that particular situation. Task, what were you tasked with? What was your responsibility? What was your goal? Action, this is what you did as a result, as a response to the particular situation that came up and based on your job, based on your responsibility. And then the result, this is something that most people neglect when they're when they're sharing an answer to a question, but you cannot neglect this. This is one of the most important parts, is what happened. What happened is a result of the action that you took. So as a leader in Burst, I'm responsible for planning events. And so I had the opportunity to plan a research day. And that's a situation and task right there. And so by planning research day, I contacted speakers, I organized times, I sent out email messages. That's your action. Most people just stop right there. But you want to go on to say, and after it was finished, it was a great success. Lots of people participated and got wonderful information that they needed to improve in areas of research. And so you walk through each one of those areas, and by doing that, you're giving a full, comprehensive answer to that particular question. This helps you give enough detail and helps you avoid giving detail that just isn't relevant. 60 seconds. Think about trying to keep this to around 60 seconds. Doesn't have to always be that long, doesn't have to be that short, but you don't want your answers to be too short and you don't want them to be too long. So here's a written out example. Let's read over this briefly with you guys. Let's see here. Situation: Captain Sully had a plane full of 186 people in complete engine failure. Everyone was in grave danger. Task: he needed to land the plane. So the action: he realized he couldn't go back and he couldn't make it to another destination. Quickly assessed the situation and decided to land the plane on the Hudson River. Flew the plane like a glider. Result: nobody lost life. Excuse me, nobody lost their life, and Captain Sully saved the day. So again, just enough detail to convey the relevant information about that particular experience. So that's the STAR method. So I want you guys to have the opportunity to practice it again. So STAR: situation, task, action, result. Everybody pick one of these questions on the screen, memorize it. Tell me about a time when, and then you're going to ask your teammate one of those questions, and then switch. Try to keep it to 60 seconds. And let's see if we can do the same thing. Tiffany, would you be able to set up those breakout rooms again?
Yeah, I'm sending out invitations right now.
Get us back in 4 minutes.
Yes, 4 minutes.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna join, or Isha, do you want to just stay on to the, oh, she left. Okay, I will join one of the rooms and see how everything's going, and we'll be back in 3 minutes.
Okay. You want to go first?
No.
Hey, Tiffany, you go.
Okay, so what was the instruction?
Same.
Oh, pay attention. Tell me about a time where something.
Where is this S or A? And STAR. Oh wait, we just pick one, right?
Yeah,
So
we
we just
pick
assign.
one.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can
No
do the
one's done?
easiest one, like tell me about a time when you had to work as a part of a team. That's easy, right?
Okay. So on Scientia, I have to work with Tiffany every day, and it's so
Wow.
it's just really a struggle, but it taught me so much about patience. Tiffany, you go.
Okay, same stat, or do you want me to pick a different one? I'll do, what does R stand for again?
I don't know. I thought we were just asking one question. Just tell me a time and then say something.
Oh, okay. Okay, so okay, so what should I talk about? You should give me an idea.
Are you doing the team one?
Yeah.
I don't know. You can talk about Scientia too.
Okay, yeah. So as a member of the Science Committee editorial board, I have to work with a lot of people who think in different ways. And so it's really challenged me to, I guess, embrace different perspectives and kind of expand my knowledge of research.
Wow, beautiful. Can you play the piano now?
Oh, me too. We have a minute.
Do it.
There's no. I'll FaceTime you later. We can.
Okay. Okay, Shelby, do you want to go?
I guess, I don't know, not really. I'll do the team one too. We have to work in bio lab groups, so I guess we have to have like a lot of like patience and like scheduling like our time management time stuff to get together and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Nice.
Are you in the normal bio lab or are you in one of the special ones?
I think normal.
The normal one?
Yeah.
Special one's next semester, isn't it? Like Harville's and stuff.
I don't know. I think it's normal too next semester. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, you should. Do you want? Okay, wait. Just remember at the end you had to take a photo.
Yeah.
And then
I can take the photo and you can stop the
recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can do that. It's 3:20, right?
Yeah, 3:20, and then we have a 10-minute break. So.
Yeah, I'll do that. You want to do
Okay.
Sikkim or just something else?
You can just say. I usually just say like you can either smile or do Sikkim, like whatever they're comfortable.
All of
with.
mine have been Sikkim. I'm trying to form bursts with like our hands, but
I know. I wanted to do something fun, but it wouldn't work.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
If you have an idea that you want to do, just text me.
Your gang sign.
Yeah, gang signs. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, let's go back. Okay, it looks like everyone's back, so you can go ahead and get started again. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Thanks. Okay, guys. Well, hopefully that was a good experience for you all. I would anticipate that some of you maybe had the experience of feeling like, gosh, I'm not sure what details to share, or it's hard to come up with an example right there on the spot to remember a story. And even if you did, it's hard to think through the relevant details. And then maybe you even felt like, gosh, I wish I had maybe shared a different story, or there would have been something else that would have been better. And so that's why it's so important to prepare these in advance and to know exactly which stories you want to share. So here's the big trick right here. If you can go into an interview with 5 to 10, it's a broad range, but 5 to 10 solid stories, specific examples from your past experiences, you're going to be ready to respond to just about anything that's thrown at you. So let's pretend, for example, I have a story about a time when I was working at McDonald's, and at McDonald's, I was working the cash register, and a lady came to me upset because there was no cheese on her cheeseburger. And so my job was to fix it. So I fixed it and sent her away happy. And so let's say I was asked, hey, Nick, tell me about a time when you demonstrated strong communication. Then I could say, well, let me tell you about a time when I was working at McDonald's and I communicated with a customer about a concern that she had about her burger. She said there was no cheese on it. So I was able to listen, understand the concern, apologize, get it corrected, and she ultimately left happy. So I just walked through the STAR method and demonstrated an example of communication. But let's say the question was, Nick, tell me about a time when you experienced a problem in the workplace. Well, let me tell you about a time when I was working at McDonald's and there was a lady that came up with a problem regarding her order. There was no cheese on her cheeseburger. And so I walked through I can use the same story to respond to that question. Or Nick, tell me about a time when you experienced a breakdown in communication. Tell me about a time when you experienced an upset customer. Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond to resolve a situation. Really just about anything you could ask me, I could probably use that story or some component of that story to respond to that particular question. I'm not going to use the same story over and over again in an interview, but the main idea is that if I have 5 to 10 stories ready to go, it doesn't matter what you ask me. I'm going to have a story that I can share, that I can I can frame around that particular question. So this is the main way I want you guys to prepare for interviews. Come up with stories. I mean, look at the job description, come up with stories that generally correspond to the types of questions you think you'll be asked based on what they're looking for in the job description. Format those stories into the STAR method, practice them, and you guys are going to be ready to go. So here's a few things to avoid. You don't want to make your responses too personal. I want to talk about relationships, addictions, strong opinions, political opinions, medical conditions, mental health conditions, those kinds of things. Don't disclose those kinds of things on the front end. You want to keep it to your skills, keep it to your qualifications, and that sort of thing in an interview situation. Don't want to focus on things that are negative. Even if you're asked about more negative questions, what's the worst thing about your last job? Tell me about your last boss. Even if it was the worst boss in the world, find something positive. Find the silver lining. Focus on the positive. Come across as a positive person. Even if the last job that you had was the most menial, tedious, boring job you've ever had, maybe you can, and they ask you, so tell me about your last job. What did you love about it? And you can say, you know what? That was a very difficult job. It required me to do a lot of paperwork, but you know what? I learned a lot through that experience. I developed my attention to detail, and I ultimately realized that I don't want to focus on that type of work, but I did develop some good skills through that process. So you can come up with something positive to say in just about any situation. Rambling, don't make those answers too long. That's why you use the STAR method. And then when you're done, a lot of people ask me the question, so when do I know when to stop my response? When you're done saying what you have to say, just stop. And avoid being too concise. So some people will ramble, but others will be too concise. And if I ask you, hey, Tiffany, tell me about your communication skills. And Tiffany's like, yeah, I'm a very effective communicator. I communicate all the time. And that's all you tell me. That's not enough. You want to tell some details, share a story, let your personality come out, smile, interact. You don't want to just be too brief in those responses. A few tips to consider on the day of the interview. You want to be on time, so make sure you have all the details, even drive it in advance, prepare your dress in advance. Go shop for a new outfit before you get the interview. You don't want to worry about that once you get the interview. You want to practice when you get the interview. But make sure everything's all set up and ready to go. Watching and listening to the morning news, current events. Some of us are great at small talk. Others of us aren't and hate it. But small talk can be really important and helpful in an interview situation because you want to be able to do some interaction and come across as friendly. So prepare to some things that you might want to talk about. Arrive early, give yourself time, try to be yourself, try to find your own way of getting over the jitters. One of the interesting things that I like to do to get over interview jitters is to imagine that everybody in the room is already my colleague, they're already my coworker, they're my friends. And so I try to treat them that way. I try to treat them like they're my friends, my colleagues. So with a professional level of courtesy and friendliness. And if I'm in person, I'm going to go and I'm going to shake every single person's hand, look them in the eye, introduce myself, because there's very often multiple people in the room. And so doing that gives you the opportunity to maybe calm down the nerves a little bit on the front end. And then at the end, this is really important, guys. Don't just walk away from an interview and not follow up. So get contact information, get a business card, and then within 24 hours of the interview, follow up, if not for anything else, but just to say thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed our conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing back about the interview or about the job, something like that. Just short and sweet. It's just a common courtesy. You can send a physical card if you'd like to, but an email is usually good as well. So definitely want to do that. So I want to show you some resources in Handshake before we end here. So the link for Handshake, if you haven't been there before, is just baylor.joinhandshake.com. And already logged in there. You have to go through Duo to get there. Once you're in, well, it logged me out. Handshake really likes to to log you out very quickly. But once you're in Handshake, you're going to see these tabs across the top. And go over here to the Career Center tab. And then go down here to Resources. And then these are divided up by the different colleges. And so I know several of you are in College of Arts and Sciences working on a Bachelor of Science. And so we have College of Arts and Sciences Science Career Resources right here. There's one for Robbins College, one for all of the areas. And there's lots of information here on resumes, career assessment, discovery, LinkedIn, job search, and interviewing is what I want to look at today. A couple of things I want to show you. This interviewing best practices. Got it pulled up here. It's just a guide. It'll walk you through some tips and tricks. A lot of the things we discussed today. It's also got the STAR outline on there to refresh your memory down here towards the bottom. There's some sample interview questions and even questions that you can ask an employer. But here's the STAR method outline. And then down at the bottom is a worksheet. So you can actually plug in an example communication, and then you work through the story right there. So you want to fill out 10 of those for an interview, so you can be ready to go. And hopefully that'll help you guys. Last thing I'll show you here is other good resources, but Interview Stream. This is a tool for you to practice video interviewing, so you can set up your own interviews, and there'll be a little recorded person avatar that's asking you questions, and then you'll respond. It will record you, and then you can go back and watch yourself, and you can see how you did responding to different questions. So really strong tool that I encourage you guys to log in and try out. Okay, folks, well, that is pretty much it, and we're just about out of time, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any last minute questions here on the tail end. Is there anything that I can help out with? And of course, I'm always available to meet one-on-one too, if you want to schedule an appointment with me through Handshake sometime.